Hi everybody, it's Janice Martel from the McIntyre Powder Project. I wrote this today for Injured Workers Day for all of us. Today we are unable to gather together because we identified a toxic exposure, COVID-19, and we are removing ourselves from the risk of exposure, illness, and death. For many workers in our province, across the country, and around the world, there is no option to remove themselves from the risk of exposure, illness, and death. During this pandemic, we call those workers heroes. And while we may feel that in our hearts and deeply appreciate all that they do for us, hero is a dangerous label because hero masks the reality that most of those workers are just trying to do their jobs and earn a living to support their families. They are dedicated to their work, they want to be safe at work, and they want to go home to their families at the end of the day without putting themselves and their family members at risk. Hero masks the failure of the government and employers to maintain an adequate stockpile of personal protective equipment to minimize the risk to those heroic workers we bang our pots and pans for. It is not a sign of heroism on the part of the workers to walk into work inadequately protected from toxic exposures. It is a sign of a lack of leadership on the part of those in charge to protect our heroes. And it is a sign of cowardice for those leaders to portray it as anything else. COVID-19 is an occupational disease for those victims who are exposed to it at work. The primary difference between COVID-19 related occupational diseases and most other types of occupational diseases is that COVID-19 is immediately visible. It is rapidly traceable. The link between toxic workplace exposures to the coronavirus and resulting illness or death is immediately visible, biologically traceable, and undeniable. The vast majority of occupational diseases are not immediately visible. They are not easily traceable. They often take years to develop and may involve multiple and cumulative toxic exposures in one or more workplaces. This makes it very challenging to establish the links between toxic workplace exposures and resulting health effects, and nearly impossible to succeed in a WSIB claim for those afflicted by occupational diseases. Because even though the legislation governing occupational disease claims in Ontario requires evidence on a balance of probabilities, the Ontario WSIB, in its adjudication of occupational disease claims, often appears to require scientific certainty. The workers afflicted by occupational diseases are the evidence of occupational diseases. The canary in the coal mine. They are showing up in numbers that are too great to ignore. And we have to look at what their bodies, their suffering, their illnesses, their deaths are telling us. Not just for compensation purposes, but to save lives. The workers' compensation system is broken. And the closer we look at that system, the more difficult it is to escape the conclusion that it is broken by design. A workers' compensation system that is designed to fail workers is a system that is designed to wear them down until they give up or die. A system that severely restricts meaningful, independent oversight and avenues of appeal, and then castrates the powers of the appeal body through the development of occupational disease policies that are intended to bind the hands of the appeals tribunal. And that broken workers' compensation system is part of a larger system that is also broken. A larger system that functionally removes the ability of workplace inspectors to effectively protect workers from unsafe working conditions. A larger system that quashes the voices of allies and advocates by removing funding from injured workers' clinics and others who give voice to the voiceless. When a system is broken by design, the only way forward is to redesign the system. In order to redesign the system, we must expose the brokenness of the current system. We do that by telling our stories. The stories of the workers whose bodies are the evidence of occupational disease. We tell our stories in many ways. Through the compilation of working conditions and exposures in the DiMatteo reports for GE and Ventra Pebra Plastics workers, through documentary filming of workers and widows, of General Electric Peterborough, so powerfully captured by Natasha Lukart and Rob Viscardis in their Town of Widows film. Through the bravery of Blaine Kinnart of Sarnia's Victims of Chemical Valley, in allowing his mesothelioma-ravaged body to be photographed by Louis Palou, to stand as haunting testament to the horrors of asbestos. We tell our stories through the courage and vulnerability of a miner dying with Parkinson's and the heartbreak of his daughter, who waged a war in his name to get the answer that he deserved to know while he was still alive, that his Parkinson's was linked to the aluminum dust he was forced to inhale at work. We tell our stories through relentless investigative journalism, from Sarah Morshahadzadeh, from Greg Mercer and his Kitchener Rubber Workers series, through local radio and newspapers to national broadcasts like the Fifth Estate. Our stories are heard through the power of free, independent journalism. We owe you much and we thank you. Through those stories, we will fight for recognition of occupational diseases. We will expose a broken workers' compensation system that is designed to fail workers, and we will redesign a system that is fair. We are many. We may feel defeated and powerless against a Goliath of a system that is broken by design, but we will stand together, we will tell our stories, and we will unbreak the system.